Continue. So far, we've done the introduction. We did the invocation. We did mantra 1, and we did verses 2 and 3 together. And tonight we'll go from verses 4 to 8 because they're a section. So we'll do all of that together. And then next week we will do mantras 9 to 11. Okay, so we're trying to kind of bunch the mantras into groups. So if you have any questions or comments as we go, please ask. This section we'll go through tonight, mantras 4 to 8. The discussion topic is the inconceivable Lord can only be known by the Mahabhagavat. So what is or who is a Mahabhagavat? A Mahabhagavat means, Maha means great, and Bhagavata means someone who is very great, basically. So Mahabhagavat means someone who's very, learned. Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, Bhagavat means Bhagavan, same like root. So it means one who's full of opulence. So it means a great soul, a Bhagavat. Mahabhagavat means very great soul. So Krishna can only really be understood by a Mahabhagavat, by someone who is pure and advanced in spiritual life. So that's the subject matter, more or less, of this section.
Mantra 6 of Mahabhagavat is a great personality who sees everything.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, no, that's a nice definition. So we will go through. We'll begin with mantra 4. If you have any questions or comments as we go, then please ask. So mantra 4. Anejat ekam manaso javiyo nainadeva apnuvan purvam arshat tadavatonian atyeti tishtat tasmin napo matarishwa dadati. Although fixed in his abode, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Although in one place he controls those who supply the air and rain, he surpasses all in excellence. So this particular mantra explains why certain people are unable to understand Krishna's position, and the fact that he is beyond material calculations, which we've been discussing so far. You can't understand God with material faculty. Even the most intelligent amongst us cannot understand God just with material faculty. Einstein apparently said that we are just like children playing on the beach with sandcastles, and we have no understanding what is in the depths of the ocean. So that is the position of all of us. We are limited. And we discussed this previously. There are two ways to understand Krishna, the ascending process and the descending process. So the ascending process means you're trying to use your own faculty, your own abilities to understand the absolute truth. And the descending process means you humbly accept knowledge coming from superior sources. So we follow the descending process because the ascending process relies on our own abilities, which are limited, which has been established previously. So, in the first paragraph, Prabhupada says, the absolute personality of Godhead, although fixed in his transcendental abode, can diffuse his different energies everywhere. So Krishna is everywhere and simultaneously is in the spiritual world. So he says in the Bhagavad Gita also, I am in everything, but everything is not in me. What does he mean by that? That he is in everything through his expansion of Paramatma, So as Paramatma is in every atom of the creation, God is in every atom in an expanded form. That's why he is Sarvagya. Sarvagya means all-knowing. He knows everything because he's everywhere simultaneously. But simultaneously, although he's everywhere, he's situated in Goloka Vrindavan in his original form, and he's not everywhere. So independent, yeah. So he's everywhere and he's not everywhere simultaneously, which means he's inconceivable. There are contradictions which are reconciled only in him. That he is inconceivably everywhere, but he's not everywhere. So that's his inconceivable potency, Achintya Shakti. So Krishna, as it is being said here, through his different energies, he pervades everything within the universe, but simultaneously he is separate. In the second paragraph, Prabhupada says, although his energies are innumerable, they can be divided into three principal categories. So he is unlimited, but there are three principal categories. We can say there is the Antaranga Shakti, the Bahiranga Shakti, and the Tatastha Shakti, which means the internal potency, the external potency, and the marginal potency. So internal potency means the spiritual energy. The external potency means this material energy that we're in. And Tatastha means the jiva, who can be in one or the other. So at the moment, we're somewhere in between.
It says demigods as well, because they are also positions, so they are in the living beings and demigods. Because, I mean, the demigods, that's just a post, it's not a, except for...
that's a post also.
That is a post also.
Yeah, so Krishna's energy is divided into different parts. In the third paragraph, Prabhupada says, although there is no difference between the Lord and his energies, one should not wrongly consider that the Supreme Lord is distributed everywhere impersonally, or that he loses his personal existence. It's a very important point to understand. I was explaining this to one of our nice guests at the Sunday feast at the farm the other day, and she was asking very sincerely, trying to understand this point. God is everywhere. So that means, in one sense, you can say he is one. But we should understand, Lord Chaitanya taught us, Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. There is a oneness and a difference in God. He is everything, he is everything, and he is everywhere, but simultaneously he is different from everything. He has his own individual personality. So it's a very important point to understand, and she was asking and going deeper and deeper and deeper to really try to understand it very deeply. And we're explaining it to her as well as we can. God is everywhere and he is everything, but he's also different from it. He is a person, and he doesn't lose his personality, although he pervades everything through his energy. So it's an important point to understand. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has described the absolute truth in the perfect explanation, which is Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. Right? He is simultaneously, inconceivably, one with and different from everything. That's the supreme absolute truth. Does that make sense? At least theoretically. At least theoretically. Prabhupada said, understand all this theoretically. Just understand it theoretically, because, I mean, how do we actually understand it? That you are everything, but you're not everything. It's, you know, it's difficult to understand. In the fourth paragraph, Prabhupada says, this fourth mantra very clearly suggests that the absolute truth is ultimately the absolute person. Otherwise, there would be no need to mention so much variegatedness in support of his personal features. So it's a very clear understanding that we have in our Vaishnav Siddhanta, or our Vaishnav philosophy. Right? It's very clear. God is a person. We are from the Bhagavat school. The Bhagavat school means the personal school. So we're very strong on this point. I was saying to our guests the other day, you can believe whatever you want to believe. That's your choice. But we believe this very strongly. Just like if someone who's very close to you and someone else ignores that person or belittles that person, right? That's extremely hurtful, right? So that's how we feel about Krishna, right? Someone says, "Oh, he doesn't exist. He's just an energy." That hurts us. Right? That's we can't tolerate that. Right? We say it's okay. You believe that, but we do not believe that. We don't compromise this principle. Krishna is a person.
And when I was on this train, this local train in the women's carriage, it was insane. It was horrible. It was so packed that we couldn't. And I had my little Jagannath in a box, and then this sister of what was that? That nun's
Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa, one of her, and she somehow slinks her way through this overcrowded carriage, and then she goes, "What's in that? That's idols." And I remember at that point I was being nice to her, but once she kind of "Don't diss my Lord Jagannath," I went, right, okay, yeah, don't.
Yeah, Turi was just saying, if you couldn't hear it, that she had some deities. She was traveling on a train in India, and a nun from the Christian tradition said that the deities were idols, and devotees don't like to hear those things. So Turi showed her other side, which we don't see often.
Some see it more than others.
Well, I see it. I see it relatively often, but others don't see it often. Another time when a monkey was being attacked in Vrindavan. Yeah, there's a group of men attacking a monkey, and Atuya stunned them. Yeah, and removed them all from attacking the monkey very quickly. So.
I find that this point's really easy to debunk, because my reasoning for it is that, well, if we all have individual personalities, of course God, the creator, must have a personality, or how could we have one? That's my reasoning.
Yeah, it's very logical. Yeah. So Andy was saying that we're people, so how could we be something that God is not? That means we're superior to God. That's not logical. Of course, Mayavadis have a logic which goes around that and like that, but we have a logic that defeats that as well. But as we said, did we say in one of the classes about the scissors? Yeah, we've already said that one. Yeah, sorry, yeah. So yeah, even when they're wrong, they'll still say scissors. Anyway, they'll still say scissors. In the 5th paragraph, Prabhupada says, Sri Isopanisad warns of the futility in trying to establish the identity of the Lord through mental speculation. One should try to learn of transcendence from a superior source, like the Vedas, which already contain knowledge of transcendence. So this has been established in earlier verses also. You have to accept authority. How do we know? What do we know? What do we know? We don't know much. What do we know? Tell us who God is. How my own example, how was I going to work out that God was a blue cowherd boy? Never. I would never have come to that conclusion. Millions of lifetimes. How am I going to come to that conclusion? God's a blue cowherd boy. And I walked into a temple. I got faith in the devotees. They told me God's a blue cowherd boy. I thought, okay, that's reasonable. There's a reasonable explanation behind that. We don't blindly accept these things. And now we can't see God in any other way. So you need revelation. You can't work these things out by yourself. It needs to be revealed. God is revealed. The Isopanisad can be interpreted in an impersonal fashion. It can be seen like that, but because we're devotees, we see it in a personal fashion, because that's our training, and our if you read the Sanskrit, it can be taken in personal.
Okay. So
Oh no.
truth is
Yeah.
ultimately the absolute person.
Yeah.
Just read.
Yeah.
But that's the purport.
Yeah. You cannot read the purports and think that God's not a person, because Prabhupada says every second paragraph that God is a person. And why does Prabhupada say it so much? Because he's drilling it into us. God is a person.
Body in the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. And also in the Bhagavad Gita, he drills that point. You're not the body, but also God is a person. So, the Isopanisad can be taken from an impersonal point of view, if we don't follow authority, if we don't hear it from higher sources, right? From devotees, actually. In the 6th paragraph, Prabhupada says, every part of the complete whole is endowed with some particular energy to act. When that part forgets his particular activities, he is considered to be in Maya, illusion. Thus, from the very beginning, Sri Isopanisad warns us to be very careful to play the part designated for us by the Lord. When we forget our relationship with the Lord, that when we fall into Maya. That's what everyone's doing in the material world. Everyone forgot Krishna and they're in Maya. Maya means illusion. Right? And when you're in illusion, you forget Krishna. Right? And when you forget Krishna, then you forget who you are. As Prabhupada says here, you forget your position. Right? We think we are Krishna. Ishwaraham, aham bhogi, siddhoham, balavan sukhi. I am the controller.
No.
Right? I am the controller. I am the enjoyer. Right? That's how we think in this material world. And that's imitating Krishna. So we have to give up that concept that we are the controller and we are the enjoyer. And we simply have to understand our position as the servant of Krishna, right? Not as the separate enjoyer. In the 7th paragraph, Srila Prabhupada explains, all power is obtained from the Lord. Therefore, each particular power must be utilized to execute the will of the Lord, and not otherwise. The Lord can be known by one who has adopted a submissive attitude. Right? So any power which is given to us, that's just coming from Krishna. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am the ability in man. Right? I am the ability. So when we can do something, even if we're a demigod, all that power just comes from Krishna. It's not separate from us. So. Any points so far? Okay. So mantra 5. Mantra 5 continues the discussion describing that the Lord has inconceivable potencies, which render him unknowable to those he does not favor. So if you're not a devotee, you can't understand Krishna. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. Right? I'm understood by my bhaktas, my devotees, and sakha. Sakha means my friends. Right? If you're not friendly towards Krishna, you'll never understand Krishna. So mantra 5 says, the Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He is within everything, and yet he is outside of everything. So Prabhupada says in the first paragraph, here is an explanation of the Supreme Lord's transcendental activities as executed by his inconceivable potencies. Contradictions are given here by way of proving the inconceivable potencies of the Lord. Such a contradiction serves to indicate the inconceivable power of God. So the main word that Prabhupada is using within is inconceivable. Inconceivable, the word is achintya. Achintya means inconceivable. You can't understand God. He's full of contradictions, right? As it says in this verse, he walks, but he doesn't walk. He walks. We see pictures of Krishna where he's walking. He has a body. He walks, but he doesn't walk, which means he's just everywhere. He doesn't have to walk to be everywhere. Like we have to. If I want to get to the door, I have to walk to the door. Krishna's already at the door. He's sitting in the couch. He's also at the door. So does he have to walk to be somewhere? No. There are pastimes where Radharani just thinks of him and he appears. So he doesn't have to walk to be somewhere, but he walks. Because he's showing us that he is a person. Right? So he has that potency that he walks but does not walk. It's inconceivable, simultaneous. It may seem contradictory, but all contradictions are reconciled within Krishna. There was one Western philosopher who said, can God create a mountain that he cannot lift? I can't remember which philosopher it was, but whether it was Nietzsche or it was one of them. But God can create a mountain that he cannot lift. It's almost like he's trying to trick. So they presented it to Prabhupada. One philosopher said, can God create a mountain that he cannot lift? And Prabhupada said, yes, he can. And then he'll lift it. Because he can do what he wants. He can create a mountain that he can't lift, and then 2 minutes later he'll lift it. And then next time he can't lift it again. Krishna can do whatever he wants. He's full of contradiction. Because he's inconceivable. That's the point. Then Prabhupada says in the second paragraph, we should not take it for granted that just because we cannot see God with our eyes, the Lord does not have a personal existence. Sri Isopanisad refutes this argument by warning us that the Lord is far away but also very near. So to say that we cannot see God is true. We can't see God. And Prabhupada would explain to us the reason we can't see God is because we do not have the eyes to see God. That's all. How are you going to see God when you have material eyes? Krishna is spiritual. How will you see something which is spiritual if you only have material eyes? We're limited. That's the point. Sometimes people would say to Prabhupada, can you show us God? Prabhupada said, do you have the eyes to see God? That's the point. The point is not whether Prabhupada can show us God, but do we have the eyes to see God? That's the point. Primanjanaj charita bhakti vilochanena. You have to have the eyes of the soul. When the heart is pure, you will see God. Prabhupada said you can see him face to face, but you have to be pure. In the third paragraph, Prabhupada says, yet, when the personality of Godhead comes before us, we neglect him. Such foolish negligence is condemned by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, wherein the Lord says that the foolish deride him when they consider him to be a mortal being. He is not a mortal being, nor does he come before us with a body produced of material nature. So the reason you can't see him is because he is spiritual. There's things, we cannot perceive even things in this world. Right? We can't see microwaves, but we know they exist. We can't see radio waves, but we know they exist. We can't see the internet, but we know it exists. Right? So all those things, we can't see the mind, but we know it exists. Right? So there are subtle things beyond our perception. Krishna is subtle. He is spiritual. You can't see him with these eyes. Right? You need purified senses. Then you can see Krishna. In the fifth paragraph, Prabhupada says, in our present state of imperfect material existence, we cannot see the Supreme Lord due to imperfect vision. Yet those devotees who want to see him by means of material vision are favored by the Lord, who appears in the so-called material form to accept his devotees' service. So how does Krishna appear so that we can see him? In the form of the deity. Archa Vigraha, the Archa Murti. So if you go to our temple in Melbourne, you'll see there are statues of Krishna. And God himself, according to our tradition, he enters those forms. And we can feel his presence. And then we worship those forms, and that's a form that we can see that Krishna is in. It's sort of spiritual, but it's something that we can perceive with these eyes. Prabhupada explains it's just like the post box, post office box. Is that what they call them? The ones on the street? What are they called? Post boxes? Yeah, post boxes. Mailbox, yeah, the mailbox. So the mailbox is on the street, right? Prabhupada explains the DT is like that, right? If you want to send a mail to someone, you got to put it in the right box. You can't just walk down the street and just put it in any box. Yeah, just walk down the street, put your letter in a box, and it doesn't get anywhere. But if you put it in that box, okay, it goes to the right place. So similarly, if you worship the form of Krishna that Krishna has entered into, according to ancient traditional practices, and being invoked by a qualified personality, then you can worship Krishna in that form, and you'll perceive him. But we can't worship Krishna just in any form, right? Because Krishna is not there on the same level in that form. Of course, you can go out and worship that tree out there. You know, you can see Krishna in the tree, but it's not the same as the deity. You won't get the same reciprocation. So we have to worship the form that has been authorized. Right? And that's how we can perceive Krishna with these materials.
I heard somewhere easy to worship a deity because the deity can't like chastise you like a guru.
The deity reciprocates. You might not hear him speak, but he can give you certain looks.
It's true.
If he's not happy, he can let you know.
Yeah.
And if he's happy, he can let you know as well. Actually, Prabhupada said when you take darshan of the deity, that is the barometer of bhakti. That's how you know how things are going. You know, because my worshipful deities are the deities in Melbourne. Radha, Vallabha, Gaura, Nitai, and Jagannath, Balaram, Subhadra, and others. But, principally them. And then, over the years, the one out of all of them, the one who's the heaviest with me is Lord Nityananda. And he's said to be the most merciful. So everyone usually gets the opposite from him. But for some reason, everyone else can be smiling, but he just looks at me. Like that. So I'm not sure why he does that, but he does that. So the deity reciprocates with us. The deity is alive. Prabhupada says in the 10th paragraph, the fact is that there is nothing but God within and without. Everything is manifested by his different energies. And in this way, there is a oneness among the diverse energies. Although there is oneness, the Lord, in his personal form, still enjoys all that is enjoyable to the senses of the minuscule, part and parcel, living entities. So, the basic principle is that we are meant to serve God. We are meant to give pleasure to him. If we don't give pleasure to Krishna, then what is the purpose of our existence? So our senses are meant to serve his senses. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhaktiya, Uchete. That our senses are meant to be engaged in the service of Krishna. And in that way, then our senses, our life will become meaningful. Okay. So mantra 6. Yatu savani bhutani atmanyevanu pashyati savabhuteshu chatmanam tatona vijugupsate. He who sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. So Prabhupada says in the first paragraph, this is a description of the Maha Bhagavata, the great personality who sees everything in relation to Krishna. There are 3 stages of realization of the Supreme Lord's presence. So this verse is describing the vision of one who can see Krishna everywhere. This is the vision of the Maha Bhagavata, or the pure devotee who sees Krishna everywhere. Prabhupada then describes 3 types of devotees. What are the 3 types of devotee categories which are described? Yep. Yep. Yeah. Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. Very important we understand these 3. The lowest level of devotee, Adhikar means qualification. Kanishta is the lowest level of qualification. Prabhupada says, in this stage, such a devotee considers the Lord to be present at the place of worship and nowhere else. He cannot ascertain who is in what position in devotional service, nor can he tell who has realized the Supreme Lord. So, a Kanishta Adhikari, generally, they think Krishna is in the temple in the deity, but they don't have so much of a perception of Krishna being outside the temple, in other living beings and so forth. And they generally, they don't really know how to deal with other people very well. They cannot ascertain who is in what position. In other words, they can't understand who is more advanced spiritually, who is less advanced spiritually, and who is equal. Because they generally think that they are the most advanced people. And if you think like that, then it becomes difficult to instruct someone who thinks they're the most advanced person. So therefore, Kanishta Adhikari has that mentality. Madhyama Adhikari, Madhyama literally means middle. Madhyama. The Madhyama Adhikari is what we should be and what we aspire to be, and what our Guru wants us to be. A Madhyama Adhikari, such devotees follow the routine formulas and sometimes quarrel among themselves, considering one type of devotion better than another. Oh, sorry, no, that's Prabhupada explaining the Kanishta. Yeah, sorry. We could say more about Kanishtas, but you can just read about them. In the second paragraph, Prabhupada says, a Madhyama Adhikari observes 4 principles. They behave differently according to circumstances. So they see the Supreme Lord as being supreme. They understand who's more advanced than them, and they serve them. Those who are equal to them, they make friends with them. And those who are less progressed, they help them become spiritually progressed. So that is the 4 positions that they see. They don't see everything equally. A Kanishta Adhikari, he can't see things equally. The Kanishta Adhikari, he has trouble differentiating who's more advanced, who's less advanced, because he thinks he's more advanced than everyone. For Madhyama Adhikari, he can differentiate. It's very important that we learn to differentiate. Prabhupada expected us to be on this platform. We can't advance unless we understand who's more advanced than us, and we have to treat them accordingly. Right? We can't advance unless we understand who's the same as us and relate to them respectfully. We can't advance if we don't understand who's less advanced and help them to advance also. So we have to, a Madhyama Adhikari needs to differentiate. You had a point?
Got a point of question. So how then, if you've got someone who's kind of stubbornly at that Kanishta stage, how do you get them to Madhyam if they don't take instruction, or they don't see, Like how does one go up to that Majjhima stage if they're quite stubbornly Kanishta?
Yeah, if someone's stubbornly on that bottom stage of being a Kanishta, you just have to distance yourself from them and let Krishna work it out with them.
Yeah, I know, but how do they? Obviously, at some point,
Yeah,
everyone starts as Kanishta.
as we said, then Krishna will deal with them. Krishna's expert. Krishna's expert.
Break them, or not break them, but challenge them.
Yeah.
They have all the
Break that stubbornness.
They have to have that realization that they're not as advanced, because if they think they're more advanced than everyone, then there's no impetus for them to change.
Yeah, that's right. So they have to kind of be brought to their knees to some degree.
Krishna will take care of it.
Generally, it comes to a fall down of them. They fall down, they become offensive, and then they fall down. And once they're on that fallen platform, then they get the real and they can see people in my life after them. They don't fall down. That's my experience.
I just got a quick question. It's saying that the Majjhima is the one that follows the four principles. So therefore, if someone is a Majjhima Adhikari and they break one of those four principles, do they fall back down to being a Kanishta?
No, it means they're struggling. But Prabhupada's not speaking of the four regulative principles there.
No.
Yeah. No, he's speaking of seeing Krishna as God. That's the first principle. How to deal with a more advanced devotee, an equal devotee, and less advanced devotee. Yeah, but it can correlate to those four regulative principles as well. And if you fall down, doesn't mean you become a Kanishta, but it means you cannot advance quickly in devotional service. Okay, and then in the third paragraph, Prabhupada says, the Uttama Adhikari, the word Uttama means topmost, very advanced devotee. An Uttama Adhikari sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee does not discriminate between the atheist and the theist, but sees everyone as part and parcel of God. So if someone is so advanced, they just see Krishna everywhere. So then they don't really differentiate. They just think everyone is meant to serve Krishna. But a Uttama Adhikari, sometimes like Prabhupada is a prime example, sometimes an Uttama Adhikari, someone who's very advanced, they have to come to the Majjhima platform to discriminate in order to spread the movement. Because if Prabhupada was just on the platform of just accepting everyone and just accepting everything, how can he operate in this world? So then you have to understand and you have to differentiate. So it's important for us to differentiate, but differentiate with knowledge and understand your position. That's the point. Because one sannyasi, one guru, many years ago, I heard him say, it was a very nice point. He said, there's only friction in a relationship when one of the people in the relationship, or both, do not understand the dynamics of the relationship, right? So if you don't understand who's more advanced than you, or who is equal to you, or who's less advanced, and one of you or both of you are acting not in your actual position, then that's when friction arises. Because when we act according to our actual position, there's no friction. Because if someone's less advanced, you're more advanced, and you're both accepting your position, there's no friction, and the relationship works very nicely. But as soon as someone goes into the wrong mood, then that's when there's friction. What's that? Krishna will work everything out. Okay. So Prabhupada states in this verse that it is clearly mentioned in this sixth mantra that one should observe or see. This means that one must follow the previous acharya, the perfected teacher. One cannot see properly unless he has heard from a superior source. And the highest source is the Vedic wisdom, which is spoken by the Lord himself. Vedic truths are coming in cyclic succession. Prabhupada keeps repeating this point. Because in Kali Yuga, our memories are short. We don't remember things very well. So that's why things are repeated. That's why, in the famous verse, Harinama, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nashteva, 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 Yatiranyata. Why do you have to repeat? If you have to repeat something 3 times to someone, that means that person's they're done. If someone say, hey, don't do that, and 2 minutes later, you say, hey, I just told you not to do that. If you say it a 3rd time, didn't I just tell you not to do that? Well, then it means the person's dull. Right. So then, Prabhupada is just repeating again and again in this section. You have to follow previous acharyas. You have to follow the Lord and superior knowledge. You have to receive this knowledge from a higher source. That's the system. Okay, mantra 7. Yasmin savani putani atmaiva bud vijanataha tatra ko moha ka shoka ekatwam anupashyataha. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks in quality, one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? The Prabhupada says in the first paragraph, the living entities are qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord. The Mahabhagavat sees everything as the energy of the Supreme Lord. Since there is no difference between the energy and the energetic, there is the sense of oneness. So this verse continues to describe the consciousness of a Mahabhagavat, a very pure, very advanced devotee. How does he see this world? He sees that everything is spiritual, everything is connected to Krishna. Everything reminds him of Krishna. Someone like Prabhupada or any of the great devotees from the past, Madhavendra Puri, we were discussing last night in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, or Pundarik Vijayanidhi. All these great devotees, they just saw Krishna everywhere. Pundarik Vijayanidhi, whenever he would see a peacock feather, he would begin to roll on the ground in ecstasy. Just by seeing a peacock feather. Why? Because it reminded him of Krishna. Krishna always wears a peacock feather. So everything he saw reminded him of Krishna. So that's Krishna consciousness, right? Everything you see reminds you of Krishna. Just like Krishna has a deer. What is Krishna's deer's name? Suranga. Suranga. So then if we see a deer, which is very rare, but if you see a deer, I've been living here 15 years, I still haven't seen it. Right? Then Suranga. Then when you see, then you can chant the name of Krishna's deer. You can remember, oh, that is Krishna's deer.
Do you know what Suranga translates to?
Su means auspicious or happy. Ranga means like colorful or like festive, kind of like that. Ranga Devi, one of the 8 main gopis is called Ranga Devi. So yeah, Suranga means like, auspiciously colorful or auspiciously festive or something like that. Because when you see a deer, it makes your heart happy. It's one of the animals.
That's not one from Ramli, though.
Yeah, there's one in
The one
Ramli.
that was the one with the demon that was.
Yeah, Marichi took the form of a deer.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know if it was called Suranga, but it was a deer.
Yeah, you're right.
But this particular deer is called Suranga, because deers are one of those special animals. They're mentioned within the Vedas. Radharani's eyes are compared to the deer. So it's like when you see, they automatically make the heart happy. So a pure devotee, everything he sees will remind him of Krishna. Just like Guru Jamprabhu, one of our gurus, then he says you should name your home that you live in, you should give it a spiritual name. Just like we have a sign on our front fence, which is now covered by vines. So maybe we have to dig it out and put it on a post. The name of our ashram is Sri Govardhan Seva Ashram. The ashram where Govardhan is served. Govardhan Seva Ashram. Every ashram should have a name. We have Krishna Ashram, Balaram Ashram, Radha Ashram. They all should have names. Right? And if you look around the property, Brindakund down the bottom here. Tekanamba, Pavan Sarovar is the big lake. Everything was given. Tekanamba is where the Goshala is. Yeah, that's Tekanamba. That Pavan Sarovar. So Uddavakyara is just behind our place, the track which goes behind. So all these, because everything should remind us of Krishna. And that's all came from Prabhupada. Prabhupada called the first farm in ISKCON New Vrindavan. Right? And he said the 7 temples should be established there, which they haven't done. But then Radhanath Swami's done that over at the Eco Village. I don't know if he's got the 7 yet, but he's working on it. Many, many, many temples. Prabhupada, the first farm in ISKCON, he wanted 7 temples on one farm. And he said in the evening you can go around to all the temples, which is what they do in Vrindavan. Vrindavan, there's 7 main temples. And you could get to all of them. It'd be hard to get to all of them in one arti, but you could. You have to move pretty quick. Yeah, you would, because Radha Raman to Madha Mohan, you'd have to move real quick. But yeah, it could be done. But if you're walking in between. Yes. But Srila Prabhupada, yeah, he said sometimes Prabhupada said he used to visit, maybe not during the arti, but in the evening he would go to all 7. Probably take about an hour to get around to all of them. It's a bit of a distance. So the point is that we should see Krishna everywhere. That's the way Prabhupada taught us. That's why, he called these farms. This farm's called New Nandagram. Right? So he gave these ideas so that you can see Krishna everywhere. Everything should remind you of Krishna. That's why we give the cows spiritual names. That's why we have spiritual names. That's why everything is spiritualized. For that reason. So that we can remember Krishna. That's the goal. Always remember Krishna. Never forget Krishna. Right? That's the essence of everything. So this particular verse, number 7, the main point of the entire verse is the real center of enjoyment is the Supreme Lord, who is the center of the sublime and spiritual rasa dance. So nice that this Shastra, it's an Upanishad, which means it's very philosophical. There's no pastime in it all. But Prabhupada, he extracts the essence out of it, and he refers to Krishna's highest pastime. Right? So he extracts the spiritual essence and he takes it to the highest level of spiritual consciousness in his commentary. We are all meant to join him and enjoy life with one transcendental interest and without any clash. That is the highest platform of spiritual interest. And as soon as one realizes this perfect form of oneness, there can be no question of illusion or lamentation. So it's a very nice point that Prabhupada makes. We are all meant to join Krishna and enjoy life with one transcendental interest without any clash. Why are there clashes in this world? Because we're not all focused on one thing. In the spiritual world, it's harmonious. Why? Because everyone's focused on one thing. What's the one thing? Krishna's pleasure. Yeah, if Krishna's happy, everyone's happy. It doesn't matter what we want. My guru once said to me, anyone? Yeah, who cares what you want? Who cares what you want? One of the mantras at Hare Krishna Valley. Who cares what you want, Honey Griva? Who cares what you want, Andy? Who cares what you want, Maggie? Who cares what you want, Atulia? We won't be so forceful with you yet. Who cares what you want, Barbara? Who cares what you want, Keshava? Who cares? Right? So the point is that Krishna's pleasure, that is what is important. What does Krishna want? Right? And we have to learn that point. Right? Because when we understand what Krishna wants, we make him happy, we will be happy. I was in France, in New Mayapur, in 1996. My guru was giving class. And he stopped the class. He looked at me and he said, he was making the point about the residents of Vrindavan. And he said, why are they so exalted? And he asked me, he stopped the whole class and he asked me, he said, why are they so exalted? And I looked at him and I said, because they just want to make Krishna happy. He said, yes, they just want to make Krishna happy. No one else. Because when Krishna's happy, everyone else is happy. But if Krishna's not happy, no one else is going to be happy. Okay, so last verse for tonight. Obviously, I'm not reading all the purports because we have to get through all the verses. So, but you're expected to. You should have read all this before this class, or you can catch up this week. Mantra 8. Sapaya gach chukram akayam avranam asna. Sorry, my eyes aren't working for some reason. Asna yiram shudam apapavidam kavya manishi paribu swayambur yata yatornhan vyadadach Shashwatibhya Samabhya. Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is embodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated. The self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. So this is a description of the Lord as the Mahabhagavat sees him, as the pure devotee sees Krishna. This is how a pure devotee sees Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada says in the first verse, the first paragraph, the Supreme Lord is not formless. In the material conception of bodily life, the soul is different from the gross embodiment and subtle mind. The Supreme Lord is the complete whole, and his mind, body, and he himself are all one and the same. So this is a very important point, that Krishna's form is non-different from Krishna. And when we go to the spiritual world, our Swarupa, our spiritual form, will be non-different from us. Right? At the moment, there is a difference between the body and the mind and us. And our problem, the biggest problem we have in this world is we identify with the body and the mind. Right? How much happiness can the body give you in this material world?
Nothing.
Not nothing. Yeah. It can give you quite a bit, actually, because we're very absorbed in it. It can give you quite a bit of happiness. But how much suffering can it give you? Disproportionate. I heard a nice class years and years ago. Like one devotee was saying, how much pleasure can you get from your little toe? You can get quite a bit.
Can you?
You can. Yeah, you can. You can. You can get quite a bit. But how much suffering can you get?
Oh.
Disproportionate.
Dis-
Disproportionate. Okay. So that's the material world. We think we can get pleasure from the body. We identify with it, and that's why we suffer. And the mind is even worse. Because how much pleasure can the mind give you? Right? A lot. And a lot of pleasure you can take in the mind, but it's not proportionate to the amount of suffering you can get from the mind. Right? The suffering from the mind is practically unlimited.
And the devotees asked Krishna if there was, asked Srila Prabhupada if there was some enjoyment in the material world.
in the Royal Botanical Gardens. Yeah, Prabhupada was going for a walk, and the devotee said, "Is there any pleasure in this material?" And Prabhupada said, "No." And then he kept walking, and then he looked at the ducks and he said, "Maybe a little bit." He also said, "Only two people in this world are happy: the transcendentalist and the madman." Yeah. You see, people are crazy; they think they're happy, so that's okay. Let them enjoy. If you identify with the body or the mind, you will suffer. And if you understand you're not the body and the mind, then you become liberated. You understand your spiritual nature. So the main point of this mantra 8, is the Supreme Lord is not formless. In the material conception of bodily life, the soul is different from the gross embodiment and subtle mind. The Supreme Lord is the complete whole, and his mind, body, and he himself are all one and the same. Right? There's no difference between Krishna's body and mind, and when we become liberated and we get a spiritual form, there's no difference between our body, our mind, and our soul. Okay, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Joining us.
Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So what's your homework? Yeah, verses 9 to 11. Verses 9 to 11 discuss the comparing the cultivation of knowledge and nescience. So those three verses will tell us what is knowledge and what is not knowledge, what is darkness. So that will be next week.
What is knowledge and what is darkness?
Or nescience, yeah. Nescience or darkness. That's the theme for the next section. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yeah.
See you next